In the last video, we learned about the movement mechanics of the objects in our game window. So for example, if we do player y equals to minus equals to 0.1, then it will move in the up direction. So if I run this main, you can see that our spaceship is moving in the upward direction. But right now we don't have any way to control this spaceship. We can't control it using our keyboard, and this is exactly what we'll be learning in this video. So what we'll be doing is that when we press the left arrow key on a keyboard, the spaceship is going to move towards the left hand side, and when we press the right hand side arrow key, then our spaceship is going to move on the right hand side. So what is the algorithm to do that? So first of all, we are going to check whether any keystroke is being pressed on our keyboard, and after we check that, we are going to check whether the keystroke pressed is either left hand side arrow key or the right hand side arrow key. So we are going to do that. So let me just write down an if condition. Let me just remove this over here, we don't need it. So after that, let me just tell you one more thing. So any keystroke that is pressed on a keyboard is actually an event, and as we have discussed before, that an event is anything that is happening inside a game window, any kind of input control. So for example, if we move a mouse, we click somewhere, we close this window, so this is a quit event. And similarly, whenever we press any keystroke on our keyboard, it is a keystroke event. So for example, every event gets logged inside this pygame.event.get, and we loop through all the events that are being stored inside it. And then after every iteration, so for example, let's say in the first iteration of this while loop, a keystroke is not being pressed, but on the 10th iteration, a keystroke is being pressed, then it will get stored inside this pygame.event.get, and we'll be able to loop through that and check whether a keystroke has been pressed or not. So inside this, I'm just going to write an if condition which says, actually before that, let me just add a comment so that you guys understand what we are doing. I'm going to write if keystroke is pressed, check whether is right or left. So this is basically what we'll be doing. Keystroke. Oh, gonna mess up my spelling sound. Alright, keystroke. Can't get the spelling right. It's alright. So anyways, how do you check whether keystroke is being pressed or not? Pygame makes it really easy. It's kind of an event which is pygame.keyDown. So this basically check if any keystroke, it doesn't have to be left or the right, it can be alphabet A, even backspace or space. It basically checks if any keystroke is being pressed. So first we are going to do that. We are going to write if event.type, which we did inside this if condition. So we have to go actually inside this for loop. So we'll just press this tab button over here. Let's press this. So now we are inside this event for loop, and now we are looping through all the events that are there. And if the event.type is equals to pygame.key down, then this means that a keystroke has been pressed on a computer. And now we have to check whether the keystroke that was pressed is left or right. So this is also pretty easy. We just again type event dot this time we type in dot key because we want to find out the key that is being pressed, and we just type in pygame dot key left, and this will just check whether the key that is being pressed is the left arrow or not. If that is the left arrow, let's just for right now print left arrow is pressed. And after that, I'm going to write again, I'm just going to copy and paste this over here, like this, and over here I'm just going to write right, and instead of k underscore left, I'm going to add the right. Alright, so basically what this does is it checks whether any keystroke is pressed, and then it checks whether the keystroke that is being pressed is left or right. And after that, we are going to check when the keystroke is being released. So after pressing down on the left arrow key, when we remove our finger from that left arrow key, that is known as the removal of the keystroke or the key up. So key down is pressing that key or pressing any button on the keyboard, and key up is basically releasing that press. So we are going to check for that over here if event.type is equals to pygame.key up. So hopefully we'll be able to find that key up over here, and then over here we are just going to check if it was the left key or the right arrow key, and then we are going to print something. So that is pretty simple. We can just copy this from here. Let's copy this, paste this, and we are going to give a condition that if the left or the right arrow key was pressed, we can just copy this from here, and put this full mark, and then over here we are just gonna write keystroke has been released, just to so you guys know what is going on. And I want you to write this code down and then actually try it out yourself so that you guys know what's happening behind the scenes. So now we can just press on play, and over here it's gonna do nothing, but on our print screen over here we are printing all of these things. So let's press the left arrow key and see if something happens. So we have to first activate our window over here, and then we can press the left arrow key, and you can see that the left arrow is pressed, and when I remove my finger it says keystroke has been released. Now what if I keep pressing on the left arrow key? If I keep pressing, it will just say left arrow is pressed and the keystroke has been released. And similarly, if I press the right arrow key, it says right arrow is pressed, but if I press any other key, it prints nothing. So let's actually print a statement over here too. Let's say a keystroke is pressed, so that we know when any other key is pressed it also runs. So over here we can just press the left arrow key again. As you can see, a keystroke is pressed, left arrow key is pressed, and keystroke has been released. But if we press something else, let's say enter, it just says a keystroke is pressed and not the left and the right arrow key, and that means that our keyboard strokes are working. So now we can just minimize it, and we're going to create a new variable over here, and this will signify the change that we want in X. So if we want the X to move in right hand direction, we need to add value to this 370 existing value, and if we want it to move on the left hand side direction, we need to decrease value from it. So I'm gonna just call it over here, create a new variable and call it player x underscore change equals to, and right now I'm going to give it a value of 0, and inside our if conditions, when the left key is pressed, I want it to increase by 0.1, and when decrease by 0.1, and we can change this 0.1 number. It basically signifies the speed with which you want the object to move. In this case it's spaceship, how quickly you want the spaceship to move, and we're going to change it later, and even in this video we'll see how it goes, if it moves too slowly or too fast. But anyways, right now we are going to decrease the value when the left key is pressed and increase the value when the right key is pressed. So what kind of change do we want in our X when we want the left arrow key is pressed? So we are going to just write over here player x underscore change, and we want to decrease the value by 0.1, let's say. And when the right arrow key is pressed, we want to increase this change by 0.1. So let's remove this minus value from over here, and when the key is released, we want the spaceship to stop moving, and that is why we want the change to be 0 when our keystroke is released. So over here we are just going to paste this over here. So this is looking pretty good. Let's actually remove this comment from here, and then we can just add this player exchange to our existing player x coordinate. So I'm just going to write player x plus equals to, and then player exchange. So it doesn't matter whether we are adding over here, because we have given it a value of minus 0.1, and over here we are given it a positive value. So whenever something is added and the value is negative, so I'm just going to give you an example, all right, so that you guys can understand this arithmetic properly. You might be thinking that why are we adding over here, because we want to subtract this 0.1, right? So let's say our current value is 370. Let's say actually take a smaller value. Let's take our player x coordinate is 5, and then when we do plus equal to, so this basically means equals to 5 plus, and then the value that is player x underscore change. So right now this value is minus 0.1 if the k left is activated. So this value will be actually minus 0.1. So after this arithmetic is processed, this will turn actually into, so let me just add an arrow key, this will actually turn into 5 equals to 5 minus 0.1. And similarly, if we add, then the addition is pretty like obvious. So we can just add 0.1 and this will remain the same, this 0.1, and the value will be 5.1. So this is how this operator over here works. So we don't need to worry about whether we are subtracting or adding if we have added our arithmetic operator over here. In this case it's minus. So this should be working. Let's run our main.py file and see if it is working. So let's activate it, and over here when we press the left arrow key, our ship is moving, and when we press the right arrow key, our ship is moving, and we 0 because we don't want it to move. You can actually change it to 0.1 to see how it works, how the spaceship is stopping. So let's try it again. Now when we move on the right hand direction and we release the keystroke, the ship actually continuously stops. So this is looking pretty good, but the speed is a little bit slow, so I'm going to increase the value to 0.3. And now if we run it, our speed should be sufficiently well. So yeah, this is looking pretty good. In future, we'll change the 0.3 to a higher value when we use the clock concept, but we are not using it right now, so this is looking pretty good. Our spaceship is moving perfectly.